It's Janet here with Nick Peterson, and Happy New Year! We're here to celebrate a big year for all of us here in the High Ticket Sales Collaborative. And so in the spirit of collaboration, I will be continuing to do interviews with members of the group. And since December, we started talking about lead generation, specifically organic lead generation. I thought I'd continue it because we had a lot of interest. And of course, as salespeople or coaches who do high ticket sales, the biggest challenge seems to always be more leads, right? Where do I find my tribe? How do I attract them? Well, Nick Peterson is a master at organic lead generation. And hi, Nick. I don't want to just keep talking, but I will.
No, go for it. You're rolling.
I want to tell you some of the cool things about Nick. First of all, he runs the best nutrition group ever on Facebook. So you should all check that out and join it. I have to say that having worked with Nick over the last, I don't know, what's it been now, like 3 or 4 months on my nutrition, it has totally shifted my life. And I haven't shared a lot about that yet, but I will. Things are happening that are all good. Thank you for that. The other thing you should know about Nick is that he is a great person to know because he is super smart, very well read, very well connected in the online world, and he shares freely. So thanks for that, Nick. And last but not least, we're here to talk about organic. So here you go, Nick, you're on.
Cool. First of all, thank you for the intro. I do share freely. I think it's the whole swelling tide raises all ships kind of thing. So I'm always happy to share when I can. And I apologize if I look over here. I'm actually watching the Facebook Live.
You figured out how to do that. I'm lucky I can even do this Zoom thing.
Yeah, it's all actually kind of new to me too. Like I developed the whole organic thing in person, which has helped tremendously. But you tell me in particular where are people getting stuck? What can I share to provide value?
Okay, well, I think we all know that buying Facebook ads is a great way to generate leads. However, it's expensive if you don't do it right. And I think one of the things, so Nick and I are also in a coaching program together with Traffic and Funnels and in the upper echelon mastermind there. We talk a lot about organic. And the reason why it is so important to position yourself organically on Facebook is because when you do start buying ads, people can actually figure out what you do, right? They can get you have a presence. And so that's what I want to talk about, Nick, because you've done really awesome at, you're just everywhere on Facebook. And if people see your ad and then they click on your website or they click into your group, you're just out there. So not only that, but you are able to book a lot of strategy sessions for your program using organic. So yeah, share with us how you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the power in organic comes from just developing communication skills. When you pay for traffic, right, you really want it honed in because you're paying for each click, you're paying for each conversion, you're paying for each view, whatever you're paying for. So your message has to make sense. And what makes sense to you in your head may not make sense to everybody else, which is why organic is such a great tool. It is just having conversations with people that are out there. And the big benefit is, hey, I make this organic post. I think it's brilliant. Ha, ha, ha. Post it out there. You might find out real quick not everybody else thinks it's so brilliant, which is fine. You just got to figure out where's the breakdown in communication. Right. So before I take this post and pay for the world to see it, how do I make it resonate with the people I want to talk to? So I call that concept like MKP, my kind of people. How do I communicate with my kind of people? Right? Who are my kind of people? And that's really the big benefit with like Facebook is I could go have a bunch of conversations on the phone or in person. Facebook is the only place, or LinkedIn or Twitter, is the only place you could put a thought out there and have it absolutely torn apart by 4,000 people at once, which is awesome because, you know, we have the capacity to look at it and say, okay, this is a valid point. I did not explain this very well. That's why this person is confused. And now you're developing your language better. Right. So that's the big benefit of organic. I throw a lot of stuff out there. And then if you go back to
you get a lot of sort of negative stuff back?
Not anymore.
Okay.
But I used to. There's like a group of 30,000 of the most just negative, angry people on the planet. And so when I want to test something, I usually put it in there. And they just poke holes in everything I have to say, which forces me to go back and really fine tune. Like, what am I trying to communicate? What context are they missing that they need to understand this? And how do I provide that context? And that's what I do in my personal group. If you make it to my group, I'm giving you the tools to understand what I need you to understand in order to understand that you need to give me money and work with me. So, but that's the power of organic. You don't have that power with paid traffic or any kind of paid marketing. And even if you do, the delay, like, you're just going to spend a lot of money. So that's one, is really fine tuning the message. I think the second one, I'd kind of identifying your kind of people, is I put out a lot of ambiguous stuff, right? Kind of like focus on the main thing. And then once that's under control, you can identify the next thing, you know, the next biggest leverage point.
Give us an example. What do you mean by that? Ambiguous stuff.
Well, that's what I will literally go like, this is how I think about things. What is the highest leverage activity that's going to stress me out the least, right? And then what is the second highest activity? And some people get mad because my post is that ambiguous. It's just like, I'm going to find an activity that is useful and doesn't stress me out. Half of the world is mad because I didn't give them anything practical, but that's fine because whatever. But the other half has kind of made their own connections, like maybe to their marriage, or they're training their pet, or raising their children, or their nutrition. And so even though my offer might be this nutrition offer, I'm still building a following of people that like the way I think. Right?
So you're not always out there talking about what you do.
I rarely, the number of people, Janet, you might be one of them, that kind of got on the phone and said, like, I don't know what you do, but I want to work with you. It's just a lot. It's a lot more than you would think. So that's how I approach organic. It casts a little bit wider net, but it's also like, there are plenty of people that need my offer right now, nutrition, that are not the kind of people I want to work with, which is why it's partly because this industry is really tough, which is why I don't speak to, hey, do you need nutrition help? By identifying my kind of people, it's a whole bunch of people I want to work with. And most of them probably need to get their nutrition on point, whether they know it or not. So that's kind of my approach to the organic. And then conversations. My level of my capacity to think and reason might be right here. And I might realize I'm talking to somebody that's up here or down here, and I have to figure out, how do I give them the tools to get here? Or how do I get the tools to get here? Otherwise, there's a whole bunch of people I'm not helping that I otherwise would be able to help if I could just bridge that gap, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So how much time do you spend every day doing this sort of just marketing aspect of your business, organic?
Actually, like, planned, 0.
Okay, so you don't have it scheduled into your day.
Not anymore. I have probably 45 to 50 pages of notes, and I have a cool application called Buffer. So all my notes are there. And when I want to do a Facebook post, I just push a button and Buffer picks a random one and throws it out there. So every morning I journal for a long time. And that's where my organic posts come from. So if you count that, it's about an hour a day.
Well, that's kind of your time, though. Your journaling is kind of your personal time, right? Your personal development, which I think I've started doing that this year, well, last year. And it was great. I actually call it the BMS time, body, mind, and spirit. And I just block off time every day to make sure that I get my exercise time in, that I get my meditation or whatever, reading, journaling. And and I don't start with appointments or calls or any of that until after that time. And it's been great. And I think you were one of the people that inspired me to do that, because I know you do it.
I think it's important. I do a cleanse. I have my new 2018 notes right here. Cleanse, center, kickstart. So like I wake up, I just drink a ton of water because I get super dehydrated at night. And then I center, I read, I write, I gather my thoughts. And then my kickstart is just the biggest cup of coffee possible. Like, all right, it's time to do action things now. But that's my morning as well. And that's where most of my organic comes from. The alternative use of organic to generate leads. And this is something that I just do. I forget that I do it because it's so natural. If I get off a call and you have an objection, right? So like Janet has this objection and it is ridiculous, but this call is about you. I'm not going to yell at you and, try to sell you anything. So I make sure I deliver value. I hang up. And then all of the harsh, like tough love things I really wanted to say to you, I'll just make a Facebook post. And I won't say, "Dear Janet," but it will be written directly to you.
Got it. That's great.
Yeah. What I get is I get like 8 or 9 people that'll say, "Oh my gosh, were you talking about me?"
Well, yeah, because any objection, there's only so many in the world, right? And so when you get it, that if one person has it, a lot of other people do also. So that's great.
So that's one of those, and it's just, you want to speak to people when you're in your organic, right? In your marketing. So I literally speak to a very specific person that I just talked to, and I put time into, tactfully busting all those objections. And then maybe Janet doesn't come back and sign up, but 4 other women do that are in the same place as her.
Yeah.
So that's another way I use, or I generate organic, is pretty much my call notes after a call.
Yeah. So for somebody who hasn't been doing it, right? If you were going to say, like, what are the 3 things that people should start doing? So I'm hearing you say, number 1 is just start posting. And you do a lot of video as well, right? You do these Facebook Lives. So do you do more? What's the balance between the video and the actual just posts that you make?
As much as I wish, there are some things actually that I don't quite know how to put into words, and like using my hands helps. But I don't really have a method. It's really like, do I feel like being on camera right now or not? Yeah. I should. If I wasn't so consistent randomly, then I would probably build a schedule.
Yeah. Well, no, you do good. You're always out there. Okay. So you're posting on your personal page as well as in your group.
Yeah. The 2 differences, 3 or 4 differences of where I'm posting, what I'm posting. I go into random groups that are cluttered like ClickFunnels. I don't even want to do, like, I don't even want to try to be productive in there. But I can go test some crap out there. Like, hey, are you guys interested in this? And then like I'll return to it in the morning and see who was useful, who wasn't. In my group, I am trying to establish myself as a thinker. Like, I don't have all the answers, but I can help you reason through them. Let's get on the phone. And so my group, I'm also graduating the level of thinking. Like, if you think this way, consider this. And I plant a lot of seeds of doubt in there, you know. If this is the case, then wouldn't this happen? And then they kind of go to bed like, well, I've been doing it all wrong. I better call that guy.
Yeah. So if you were doing the objection type post, right, the things you wanted to say to somebody, that would be a good place to do that in your group.
Especially, it depends on if it was specifically about nutrition.
Yeah.
Yes. If I could broaden it out and make it more about just life in general, I'd put them on my wall. Now, what I do is if you go to my wall, you won't see the 55 posts I made last month because I go back and I hide them, which means they still show up on all my, I still want you to see them if you're my friend. They still show up on your news feed, but they're not on mine, which means if you're a complete stranger and you try to creep on me like, oh, who is this Nick guy? You don't see all of my ranting. You actually see other people talking about what we do. So it's important to be mindful of where you're at.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never realized you did that.
Yeah. So you'll see, like, you might see me post 4 times in a day, but if you go to my wall, those 4 posts won't be there. If you go back to your timeline, they'll still show up in your timeline. If you go to my wall, you're just going to see everything I'm tagged in. So, like, the question is always, like, is this a real person?
Yeah.
And when you see that 14 other people have talked about me in the last 3 weeks, I'm probably a real person. So it's just being mindful of it's that social intelligence. Not what are your intentions, but what do other people see? And you or me, I want to be responsible for what other people, their first impression, as much as possible. So that's kind of the way I organic. I pretty much try to steer clear of other people's groups now, unless I've been invited in.
Oh, okay.
But that's just
But in the beginning, you joined quite a few groups and started conversations like on separate, like on Messenger, or how did you do that?
Yeah, it's interesting for me. I'm sure it would work out the same because I don't have room on my friends list, like Facebook maxed out or whatever. So the message is always, hey, Facebook won't let me add you. Right. So it's kind of cool because it just becomes kind of about being friends instead of like business or so I'll be like, oh, here, let me make room. Oh, thanks, man. I really like your stuff. And then it's just a conversation. Right.
Yeah.
I think the big mistake people make is somebody tried to do organic in my group, made a really good post, and it's a nutrition group, right? These are just like moms, dads, business owners, firefighters that want to get their nutrition on point. So a business owner went in, made a really good post in my group, and then messaged everybody that commented and say, hey, how can I help your business? 95% of them don't have a business, right? So you already know that this person is not paying any attention to the person. So I think that's the biggest mistake people make is like, oh, hey, you like something, you want to buy something from me? You probably know as much as anybody I don't know if it's a buying cycle, like, but from the moment you're introduced to me to when you actually buy something is very, very long.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about that. So, it's really being that human first, right? Making the human connection and really seeing the other person. So it's the same in the marketing aspect and the organic piece as it is in the selling stage. It's not about you making the sale, about you making the organic. It's more about that connection with the other person and really trying to figure out if there's a fit, then it will become obvious and they'll ask.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's great. Okay, so just kind of recap. So you talked about the posts and doing that in the group, and then you've talked about how you connect with people in other groups, which you don't do a lot of now as much. One of the things I have noticed that you're great about, though, and I think it's really worked in your favor, is that you are very supportive of other people. So when people do make a post in their group, you're the first one, the first person to say, oh yeah, this, listen to Janet, she's a great salesperson or whatever it is. But you do that all across the board, with so many people. And I think that's great. You're not there always thinking about what's in it for you, but you really are helping other people, which is a great thing.
Yeah, there's a book called Go Givers Sell More.
Oh yeah. What's his name? He's in Florida.
Bob Berg.
Bob. Yeah. Bob Berg. Yeah. I know who he is. I actually went to one of his seminars.
And that's the swelling tide thing. It's hard for some people to not martyr themselves. Because I've been there, the point where I have to tell myself I'm a leader, not a savior, But it really is a swelling tide kind of thing. And if I am in this is a social intelligence thing. It's one of if you read the 48 Laws of Power, it's one of my favorites, is know your place and be as useful as you can in that place. So if I'm in your group, you're the master of the group, I am a student, and how useful can I be as a student? And, don't try to, if I try to be the master, you'll probably kick me out, right? So understand where you are and then be as useful as you can in that role, or just don't have that role at all. But anything else is just going to cause problems. So that's a social awareness. In this setting, where am I? And what can I possibly do to be useful? And part of being useful is also making sure the master, in this case, understands that that's how they're being treated. Right? So I go into your group. Chris and Taylor have a great group. It's their group. They are the masters of their domain. And the best thing I can do is be as supportive and productive and useful as possible without anybody getting confused about, I know my role, I know theirs kind of thing. So it works really well, because then people to be transparent, people like you say, hey, do you want to interview? And you get exposure and
yeah, it works, right? And it's just not, it's just nice the way that it works, right? So it's somebody is really supportive. You want to be in turn supportive to that person, and that, geez, if everybody did that in the world, wouldn't we be in a better place? So I'm all about that collaboration, which obviously is why I named the group the High Ticket Sales Collaboration. And I don't think we compete. I think we compete maybe within our own mind, but it's an inside job, the competition piece of it. It doesn't have to do with anybody else, because we all are unique. We're all doing something different, and our tribe is out there. And I love the whole concept of abundance, right? There's just more people out there that need help than there are those of us who are offering help. So we attract those that are the right people will be attracted to us.
Yeah, one thing about really good service providers too, in my experience, which is admittedly limited, they will have no problem helping build up other great service providers.
Yeah.
And so that mindset of abundance ends up, it's kind of like the cream rises to the top, right? There's, if the truly great service providers build up the truly great service providers, there becomes a separation, and it's just obvious who belongs up here and who doesn't.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the collaboration's great.
Yeah. Well, we're good. So anyway, I love your messaging. You're an amazing guy, and guess I'm going to get to see you pretty soon in Tennessee at one of our mastermind groups, and then February we get to go to Utah.
I was going to say, you're going to Utah?
Hey, I'm going, but yeah, I came to Florida to get away from snow, but anyway, that's okay. It'll be fun. So cool. All right. So just to wrap it up, let's just talk real quick about your podcast. So I'm interested in that because I know that it's not about nutrition, right? It's about sort of, well, I consider you a thought leader, and I think that's kind of what you're doing in the podcast. So tell us quickly about that.
Yeah, the podcast is designed. First of all, I do have Dr. Trevor Kashey on at least the first 13 episodes. So
Okay, so you do talk a lot about nutrition.
we tie it into there's a podcast episode, and there's specifically what does this mean in terms of like metabolic chemistry and practical nutrition. And then I'll talk about what it means practically for business and stuff like that. So this is the thought, right? This is the concept, this is the principle. And then Dr. Kashey is obviously most qualified to explain what that means in the context of nutrition. And I'll explain what it means in the context of like personal development or business. But the whole podcast is actually designed to introduce the concepts you need to know in order to understand the subsequent concepts we're going to introduce. So it should, if it does its job, you should, after listening to episode 1, you should think a little bit different as you go into episode 2, which also means you should go back and listen to 1 because it'll mean something different to you, which is always crazy to people. But looking to develop almost like the mastermind mindset where it's a whole bunch of intelligent people triangulate and challenge each other's beliefs and get a more complete view of the world. Just trying to expand your reality. So it's this concept, this is what it means. Next concept, this is what it means. And we're really just trying to give you the tools to kind of understand and comprehend what's coming.
Nice.
So it's really graduating people to the point of just thinking differently.
Yeah. And what's the name of the podcast?
It is just the Relentless podcast. And the little tagline, because there's a bunch of Relentless podcasts out there, is better every day.
No, I like that. Continuous
Right, so
improvement.
Yeah, it's just the Kaizen, the concept of Kaizen, it's just getting a little bit better every day, because it sounds like boring and monotonous and like, I want to get a lot better right now. But if anybody ever spent like 6 months of their life actually getting better every day, they would probably make more progress than they ever have before.
Yeah.
Right. So we're just trying to really just hammer down the fundamentals, and the three things that come like directly out of, if you've read Filters of Folly, are, what are the words, right? That's number one. The literate, what are the words? What are people saying? And then realizing that we don't know what any of that means, right? People are so ambiguous in their speech that like, nobody knows what anybody's words actually mean. So what are the numbers, right? How do you look at numbers, proportion, scale, time, stuff like that? And then what do you do when real life happens? The numbers make sense, but what if the workers go on strike? What if your house burns down? What if you get sick? And that's the ecology standpoint, right? So just that full 360 view of, this is what everybody says. This is what the numbers suggest. What does human behavior have? Like, what effect does human behavior have on all this stuff? And then learning how to make decisions given all that information. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. All right. Well, thanks so much, Nick, for joining us. And to all of you who are out there, I hope you got a lot of value out of this. I'm sure you did. And make sure you check out Nick's podcast and jump on over into the best nutrition group ever.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. We'll be talking soon.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Bye, everybody.